Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. The entire Chicagoland region is home to thousands of families who originated in Mexico, Puerto Rico, Central and South America. Yet many of us do not understand the culture and backgrounds of these neighbors and co-workers. With us today are two people whose roots are similar. In addition, they host a popular local radio program that deals with issues and topics of interest in the Latino and Hispanic communities. Let's meet Eve Gomez and Juan Andrade. Bienvenido a Lakeshore Focus.
Hola, Keith. ¿Cómo estás?
Bienvenidos, Keith.
Bien. So that's about the extent of my Spanish. There it is. No, I have a little bit more, but I'll save it for later. I'm really glad to have you guys on the show. I know you guys do radio a lot, so although Juan used to do TV,
Public access television, yes.
So you're already a TV star.
And, well, I guess so. I guess so.
Take it if you can, right?
Right, right.
Keith, I do want to thank you for inviting us, to be a guest on Lakeshore Focus Television.
Sure.
Yes,
well,
muchas gracias por invitarnos aquí. Thank you so much for
so
inviting
I
us.
am glad to have you on here. Let me address one of the first questions, which is, you noticed in the intro, I use both Latino and Hispanic. So I think for a lot of people, when are you supposed to use which one? Which one's proper? Some people want to use one, some want to use the other. Is there a good guideline here for we gringos who don't understand the difference, perhaps?
Let me just say this. I prefer Hispanic, but I guess it's just a personal preference and a personal choice. I know you got Hispanics, Latinos, and whatever the case may be, but I prefer Hispanic.
Okay, that's what you prefer. What do you
To
prefer?
me, it doesn't matter. I think back in the day, we used to use Hispanics more than the word Latino. Now, in the media and everywhere, people prefer Latino. So to me, it doesn't make a difference, but Latino, I think, comes from Latin, and that's not the language that we speak. So,
which is true. Plus, Latin America, really is it's not even called that anymore. We're pretty much called Central America,
Central
right?
America. Mm-hmm.
So, but does it matter to some people?
It does. One day, Juan and I happened to go to a trip on Chicago, and they were talking about, some people were really adamant about, no, I'm not called Latino, I'm called Hispanic, and because they're going back to the roots of why they were called Hispanic versus Latino, again, because Latino comes from the word Latin, and the language is Latin, and in some areas, Latin is not the language spoken in Latin America, right?
Right.
So some people do prefer that. To me, you know what, tomato, tomato.
Okay. So, but for those who do care, for people like me or someone, how do I figure out if I'm going to offend somebody, or what do I say?
I would just ask.
Okay. Which do you prefer?
Right, Latino or Hispanic.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that.
It is. Just ask, and they'll tell you, right?
Okay. So, your show is mostly dealing with people who are Spanish speaking, right? Is that who listens to? Do you do the whole show in Spanish?
Well, our show actually began on October 30th of 2010, and it is actually a bilingual show. Most of the programs are in English, but there is Spanish that is part of the program itself, especially if we have guests that are bilingual, so we can have a bilingual conversation. Or there may be times where our guest is not Spanish speaking, but we may translate certain items or part of the conversation in Spanish during the program.
So you do a little of both.
Right, and I do the majority of the Spanish speaking, because that is my first language, so why not? And we have had actually guests that are all Spanish speaking as well, so it depends, but we like to, especially if we make announcements of certain things that are going on in the community, we'd say it both English and Spanish. Information is important to have it in both languages.
So it's interesting. I've heard you speak Spanish a lot. I think today was the first time I've ever heard you speak Spanish when you said something at the beginning of the show.
I can speak Spanish, I can read Spanish, I can understand Spanish, but in comparison to her Spanish, my Spanish is down here where hers is up there, but she's a court interpreter, so she has to have a mastery of the Spanish language, where I do not, but I can communicate. And I do that especially on my job, where any Spanish-speaking individuals that come through our probation department, since I am a probation officer, I supervise them because I'm the only Spanish-speaking probation officer in our court.
So I should say that a little bit here is you guys do have other roles besides just,
Oh, yeah.
this is not how you make your living on
No,
radio.
I would be, yeah, no.
So Juan, you're a
This is
probation
not.
officer with Lake County.
Lake County
right?
Court, yes.
Lake County Court, and you've got your own business.
Yes, I do. EG Spanish Interpreting and Consulting LLC. Yes.
So that's what you guys do to pay the bills, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I do it as a profession, speaking English and Spanish, Spanish to English, so as an interpreter.
Now you were born outside the country. So
Yes, I was.
when did you move here and from where?
Actually, I was born in Mexico, Guanajuato, from the state of Guanajuato. In 1975, we moved into Gary, Indiana. So I spoke none English. It's all Spanish.
So if she tells us her age, then we can calculate 75, how old she is. And
Oh, that's
everything.
okay.
So-
I don't mind telling you my age. Even though most women say
So
that's
how old
not a
were you when
question.
you moved here?
I was 7 years old.
Okay, so you're 7.
Yes.
So, and you knew no English?
None.
So how long did you have to kind of immediately start learning? Did you get put
Yes,
in school?
I was put into school. We moved in July. I remember setting foot in Gary, Indiana, July 25th, 1975. And school started back in late August, I believe, or early September, in Gary. And my teacher was actually Anglo for kindergarten. And months later, not a full year, I was moved up to first grade because I guess I kind of conquered it quite fast. So.
So what is that like? Because I mean, we still see a lot of kids who still are moving to America from other countries. I mean, what's that like to not speak a word of English and then get shoved into school?
I would say interesting. It was kind of awkward. First coming into this country, everything was so different. The language, of course, was like, what? What are you saying? You know, it's too fast. Just like how some people hear our Spanish saying you're speaking too fast. Everything was foreign to me, from the style, the hair, the color, because we had actually a pretty diverse community when I moved into Gary, Indiana. But the coins, the currency, the homes, everything was foreign to me. Everything.
Different.
Yeah, very different. Back at home, we just had our bathroom built, so before it was back in the backyard, So here coming into a 2-story, 6-bedroom home, where it's like, wow, it's a mansion to us,
Yeah. So you were born here, right, Juan? Your family were your parents from here too?
No, I was born here and actually still live in East Chicago. My parents, that's my mom, my dad, and both of my sisters were all born in Mexico. And actually, the last time I was in Mexico, I might have been maybe 15 years of age.
Okay.
So it's been a
Did they
while.
still speak Spanish in your home when you were a kid?
Yes, and that was pretty much a dominant language, was Spanish. My parents were older, so to speak, compared to some other parents and so forth. So them being from Mexico and so forth, we pretty much spoke in Spanish.
I assume obviously your parents spoke Spanish all the time at home.
It was
too,
all
right?
Spanish, and I
Okay.
believe that's what helped continue my language in Spanish, because it was all Spanish with them, and outside the home it was all English.
Now I heard at one point, and this might be more fitting for you, Juan, that at one point a lot of people who came here from Mexico or from Latin America would say to their kids, focus on your English, don't worry about your Spanish because you want to blend in here, you want to be part of this culture. Did you hear that kind of message? Or did you know other kids that got that kind of message? Even to say, don't learn Spanish, don't worry about it.
What you're saying is probably true, and I think more of the younger generation right now probably do not know Spanish or maybe know little Spanish, and it's pretty much different from the families that grew up back then as opposed to the families that are growing up right now and the younger generation.
People will often be critical and say, if you're in America, you need to learn to speak Spanish. Speak English. Speak
right.
English. Quit speaking Spanish. Speak English. That's the language here. How do you react to that, or what's your thoughts on that?
Has that been said to you, Juan? Ever?
Okay. Well,
Don't speak Spanish. We're in America.
I've heard it before, but not to me.
Not to you.
But
It was said to me. Yeah.
let me just say this: the more languages anyone knows, the more valuable that person becomes in their work, in whatever situation may be, in church, in organizations. So, yes, it's good to know English, being in part of the United States of America, but it's not a hindrance, it's not a negative if you know other languages besides English. And like I said, it's just a positive. The more languages you know, the better it'll be for you overall.
I tend to fully agree with you, but I just know that there are some people who still have that perspective. And so you heard that from people.
Yeah.
And how did you react to that?
Actually, you know, as outspoken as I am, it's not that it's a problem for someone to tell me that, but I have heard other people that I interpret for not to speak Spanish in schools, in places of business, even at a store. It was once told to me when I was a mortgage consultant, and all our customers or clients were Spanish speaking. He says, only speak to them in Spanish, but don't speak Spanish here among the employees. I had a big issue with that, and I said, well, you really can't legally tell me not to. This is, to me, the melting pot. And as Juan said, I second that. The more languages you know, the better. And that's something that I so many times repeat to all our youth when I go talk to them at schools is, who knows a second language? If not, please pick up a second language, whether it's Spanish, Mandarin Chinese, or French, Polish. It's, to me, you're twice the value.
It's a great tool.
Yeah.
So I'll have to admit, one of the fun things I did have some Spanish when I was a kid, but kind of got rusty over time, but I can understand a little bit. My favorite thing is to be in like an elevator or near some people who are having their conversation in Spanish, and then say something to them, either a Spanish phrase or answer a question for them, and they look at me like, you understood everything we were saying. Is that a little awkward or something? I mean, I have fun with it.
No, you know what? I've experienced that myself, and some Spanish-speaking people had no idea that I spoke Spanish. So one specific, well, several occasions actually, in the train. I was a train rider to work and school downtown in Chicago, and I'm hearing people's conversations, and then they're talking about me, and I'm laughing. It's like, if these men only knew I understood. And then when I got up to my stop, and I would say, que tengan un buen día, have a nice day. They're like, oh, you understood what we said? I said, yes. You don't look like you speak Spanish. I'm like, well, what is that supposed to look like, right? So I've personally experienced that, where some people end up thinking that I didn't speak the language.
So here's one of the things I want from this show is to educate our viewers about a few things, as well as help them understand some of these issues. So here, I have a small working knowledge of Spanish, but I'm really afraid to hardly ever use it because I feel like I'll embarrass myself, or I won't even know what to say, or what I've been taught is wrong. And I hear that from a lot of people who know a little of a language, but they just won't even use it at all. So how do you, particularly you, Eve, perceive somebody who's trying, at least makes an attempt to speak Spanish with you, even if it's lousy?
I would actually congratulate them that they're even taking that, I would say, the guts to even try or attempt, because if you don't ever try, you will never get it. Or if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
And so I won't put them down. I actually will help them pronunciate or show them the correct word. I know what you're trying to say.
So that's good for them.
Yeah, it is good, because otherwise you'll never lose that fear, and you won't be speaking it. You may understand it, but not speak it.
So on your show, you deal with a lot of the issues going on. I mean, what's on the minds of people who are, in the Hispanic community? I mean, particularly those who are first generation. I mean, what kind of issues are they concerned about? What do they want to talk about on the shows? What do they want to hear? I know you guys cover a lot of subjects, but what's kind of on the minds of people?
Well, first of all, the name of our show is called Nuestra Comunidad Northwest Indiana, which in English is Our Community Northwest Indiana. And actually, it's a continuation of a program that I had on public access television called Nuestra Comunidad Programa Bilingüe. And then when actually Comcast shut down public access TV in 2007, it wasn't a good day for me, because I treasure public access, so I'm glad I'm now on the radio here. But as far as Nuestra Comunidad Northwest Indiana, I think when it comes to issues in the Latino community, they may vary depending upon the age group of the people that you may be addressing, whereas in terms of the younger generation as opposed to the older generation. But I think right now, especially with a presidential election coming up, immigration is a major issue when it comes to the Hispanic community, and even the non-Hispanic community, because there are non-Hispanics that have a major issue with the issue of immigration in our country.
So, and that's probably for old and young, both have that issue. What other issues do you see, Eve, and maybe there's a distinction between the older and the younger generation? What do you see? What's on their minds?
Well, I reach out to the middle age, 30s, 40s, 50s. And the ones that listen, the English speaking, they're more older because be it much, it's in Gary, Indiana, so the majority that listen that are English speaking are from Gary, but we have a lot of people from East Chicago listening. And when we're talking about legal issues, like Juan just mentioned, immigration, that is one thing that's huge. Some are for it, some are against it. I just wish that they would know what it takes for someone that's been here 20 years and still can't get through to immigration to become legal and make everything right. And being in our program, that's one thing that is one of our missions, is to educate our listeners, English and Spanish, because there may be something that they may be missing and they're only guided by other media or someone telling them misinformation or myths. Because I've had immigrants in my family. My father was here as an immigrant, undocumented. So that doesn't mean he's a criminal. That doesn't mean that he came here to take somebody else's job. It doesn't mean that he's here to take a number or someone else's number. It's here that because he came to have a better life and to be able to take care of his whole family.
So it sounds like there's actually some mixed perceptions or mixed opinions about this even in the community. I think everybody probably stereotypes or puts everybody in one category and says, oh my gosh, if you're Hispanic, you probably are pro-immigration or something. But there's difference of opinion, sounds like.
There is, and even some English-speaking Hispanic Latinos are against us not talking English.
Wow, okay. Yeah. So for those who are non-Hispanic, non-Latino, and who don't really understand sometimes the culture and even like sometimes how to approach, they just like, it's easier to go, I really don't know, you're speaking Spanish and so you're different. Are there kind of some do's and don'ts, you know, some things you'd say, you know, do this. This is a good thing to do, and some things that please don't do this?
Go for it.
Oh, you okay.
Go first.
I won't say that there is or there isn't. I think that that's the problem where we hesitate, where we are only based on perception, only what we see, because we can be deceiving ourselves just by going with the appearance and not approaching a group or a person, and then that's when they'll know.
So there's a do and a don't.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate and do approach.
Exactly.
Right? Don't be afraid.
Yeah,
so
I think that, and then you start learning about that person or that culture. And that's something that I embrace and tell everybody. Learn each other's culture. Learn from each other.
So you have some do's and don'ts?
At the moment, I don't have a do's and don'ts.
Okay. Well, so let me ask you this. If I approached you and said, so Juan, where are you from anyway? How do you react to that question? Is that offensive? Because you look different, so you look like you're, you know.
I think maybe follow-up questions would probably determine whether, you know, where that person's coming from.
So you wouldn't get offended if they asked you just that? No. Or would you? No.
And you know what, every person's different, so to speak, but like I said, that's just one question. The follow-up would kind of lead into, you know, what direction that person's coming from.
But your answer could be Chicago, right?
Right, and I could say that,
Chicago.
yeah, I'm from East Chicago, which I am.
So, but then somebody could say, well, where are your people from or where are your family from? And then that's probably an okay question?
The more questions that you're talking about in the direction that they may be going, then would probably lead me to ask a question.
So it's the intent.
Yes,
you can tell somebody who's genuinely interested in what you're saying and somebody who's like, we're kind of eyeballing you and trying to figure out. Do you see that as a difference too?
I'll just go ahead and tell them I'm from Mexico, or do you mean where I'm from is what city?
Okay.
Kind of elaborate on the question, because it could be two meanings. One from where are you from as in city, where are you from as in country, and in my instance.
You know, one of the things that I think some Americans are concerned about, because they keep hearing this population growth, that, you know, the Hispanic population is going to really boom in this country. And that scares some people, I think. I mean, what's your take on that, or what do you say when people are concerned about that?
Well, I think I just read this recently where right now let's say, Hispanic population that are migrating into the United States is taking a back seat to, I think, the Chinese or Oriental people that took the number one position in terms of migrating into the United States. Part of the reason has to do with the immigration issues right now we have in our country, and the fact that it's harder to get a job right now in the United States if, you know, you're a not documented individual.
Right. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I just look at it this way. I don't mind you asking questions as long as there's no hidden agenda.
Okay.
I believe that we all should not be in fear of learning from each other, culture or language, or just the lifestyle, because, you know, I've told my son, you know, he has an Anglo girlfriend, you know, different ethnicities. You know what, you'll see the difference in our culture. And he doesn't understand that yet because he was raised here.
Right.
He was raised in Hammond, Indiana. So he doesn't see that
He
yet.
hadn't seen that, which is maybe a good thing at this
It could be,
point.
yeah,
So,
because then you start stereotyping, and that's what most of us do.
And a real learning experience
Yeah.
for him
and
and her.
probably for you guys, it's like, okay, the time has blown by already, so we're down to probably a minute here. And
Wow.
just I know.
Time
it's just-
flies.
we were-
And that's what happens on our show. Like, oh, we're up almost 5 minutes.
So
it's over.
it feels like I'm going to have to do a sequel to this show because I had
Yeah.
like a list of other questions. So we're going to maybe have to do a follow-up at some point. But I really
be great.
appreciate both of you coming on the show and sharing these thoughts. And people should tune in. What time's your show on?
Actually, Friday evenings from 5 to 6 p.m. and Saturday mornings from 10 to 11, and that's 1370 a.m. on your AM radio.
Yeah, AM still exists,
So-
right?
And we are live on Ustream.tv.
So and he's got that down perfectly.
Yes, he does.
So thank you guys for being here on the show. Really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
You, our viewers, are the public media audience. You are the people who regularly watch public television and listen to public radio. Do you realize how cool you are? You people are great. You are a unique and special, and I have the privilege of producing and hosting a show for you every week. Let me tell you why I think you are so awesome. First, you want to learn and understand. You are intrigued by a wide variety of topics and eager to expand your knowledge and grasp of many subjects. Recycling, disaster preparedness, human trafficking, early childhood education, and ghost tracking are all matters which you find interesting. You enjoy art and culture, whether it's vintage rock and roll, great show tunes, classical performances, or listening to John Kane talk about the arts in our region. You are inspired by real-life stories of people doing remarkable things. Our shows stimulate you to act and motivate you to follow your heart. I find it intriguing how you notice specific details on this show. A couple of weeks ago, I was interviewing Christine Densmore about her program, Drama Kids. At one point, I made a reference to the production Little Shop of Horrors and the character Audrey, the man-eating plant. One of the viewers caught my comment and responded by telling me that her son, a high school student, was playing that very role in that same play in Michigan City the following week. Wow, our viewers don't miss much of anything. That's what I love about you. It is my hope that each Lakeshore Focus show is one you find worthy of viewing. We want to enlighten you and make you more aware of what is going on in our communities. We sincerely appreciate when you watch Lakeshore Public Television, whether at the time we air or from our website. Your reactions and thoughts are always interesting to hear, so send those emails and notes. Our address is listed on your screen. Please note our web address and visit the site when you can. Go to www.lakeshorepublicmedia.org. There is so much to see. By the way, thanks, Lori Felt, for your email, and good luck with that man-eating plant and teenager living in your house. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.